in the throes of discussing the principle of ilo v'olu, in context of yesh v'yayin. And let me explain that ilo v'olu means that there is the source for the ilo, for the olu, within the ilo. And it says that there are two ways that this can happen. The first way we discussed already. This is what we finished. That the ilo actually contains the olo internally to itself. And then as a result of the various involvement and engagement of the ilo, the olo comes forth and is born. The motion for this that we used was chokhmah, was sechel and midas. And we pointed out that midas exists within the sechel. In the sechel, this is in the form of hispoilus. This is the midas shu'emechem. And then the midas are born, that becomes, this is the ilo v'olo. Towards the end of that ois, the Rebbe points out that there is in fact another way of explaining this phenomenon. And that is that the midas that are in the sechel, that the hispoilus sichli, is not midas altogether. It is in the category of sechel. Because the hispoilus stays within the sechel element itself. It's a hispoilus that has to do with the goodness and the greatness of that which you understood, rather its ramifications and its effect. And therefore this is not really midas, it's sechel. And yet, from this also evolves the union from midas. How the midas come out from there? There the midas not come out in the form of that the midas was pre-existent in the sechel, because it was not, it was sechel. And yet midas do come, and the way the midas come, this is called a ha-arah. It's a ha-arah of the midah, the way it is, of the midah of a sechel, and then it comes out, it becomes a ha-arah. The principle of ha-arah is we have discussed it many times, and we need clearly much more of it. One principle in ha-arah is that even though ha-arah means it is a reflection of it, it is outside, but it's a reflection of that which it reflected, from where it comes from. But the principle of ha-arah is different than ilo v'olo, than ilo v'olo as we are discussing it, where the olo is born as a separate entity. Ha-arah is a reflection of the way the inyan is in the source. So therefore there is a continued relationship, the ha-arah, the ilo and the olo. It's called the ha-arah. So this is another way of explaining this phenomenon. Now we're going into ois mem. So we're
going into the second way.
Yeah.
That was the first way.
That's right. The second manner of ilo v'olo, b'inyan, that is present, that is to be found in the inyan of ilo v'olo b'meichin gufa, of the phenomenon of Yila V'Yol b'Meichin Gufa within Meichin itself, not as we spoke till now. Meichin and Midos. When we're talking within the level of Meichin itself, there's also Yila V'Yol, but a different process of Yila V'Yol. As for example, v'hashpo as ha-sechel min ha-mashpia el ha-makabel. When the sechel comes forth from the mashpia to the makabel, he's being presented to the makabel, so that the makabel can receive the sechel, which was originally in the mind of the mashpia. This sechel that the mashpia ultimately bestows to the makabel, how does it come? This is in from Yila V'Yol. What is the difference between that and Midas? So there, as far as sechel, mashpia makabel harei there, behold, sechel hanishpa el ha-makabel. The sechel that is being bestowed onto the makabel, mehus achar, is not a different reality. Sechel shel ha-mashpia. It's not a different inyan from the sechel of mashpia. The mashpia is mashpia. It gives the makabel of his sechel. Yet, in order to give the makabel his sechel, he has to reduce the sechel to the point when he can be presented to the makabel, and the makabel can actually relate to it. Nonetheless, it's not a mehus achar. It is not a different reality. Rak, what then is the difference? The difference is shehu ha-arah levad min sechel ha-mashpia. The sechel that is bestowed to the makabel is only a ha-arah of the sechel of the mashpia. We'll have a chance now to discuss more definitively.
To remain on this call, press 1.
Should we give another chance?
Returning to the conference room.
Yeah. It's only a ha-arah from the sechel and the mashpia. Although, in fact, this is really the sechel of the mashpia. It's not a separate entity. As I said, we'll have a chance now to discuss the principle of ha-arah. V'nimshach misechel ha-mashpia. And then this ha-arah is drawn from the sechel of the mashpia. However, it's only ha-arah. So therefore, how do we define this hamshor? It does not come from the essence, from the reality and the etzem of his meichin, or the meichin of the mashpia. Kiyim only mibchinas chitzenius. It comes only from bchinas chitzenius, from the china chitzenius, from the external aspect of that sechel. Shehu gam ken ha-arah. The bechina chitzenius of the sechel, the mashpia, is also a ha-arah of the sechel, of the real sechel of the mashpia. All right, so we need to discuss it a bit. Need a little more water.
Are there clean cups here?
No, there aren't. I have the.
Bring the thing, bring it off. In a tray, in The bowl.
a bowl. The tea was very hot,
Uh-huh.
so you couldn't drink directly. So what they used to do, the elite, this was not a low-level performance, is to pour some of the tea into the bowl and drink from the bowl, because it cools off as you pour it in.
Yeah, it cools off faster than in a cup.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
My grandmother used to pour my mother her tea in a whole bunch of different cups.
Oh, yeah, something else. Yeah. Okay, this is Mibchina Chitzenius. Mibchina Chitzenius. So Chitzenius Bechina. Of the sechel, which is also a ha-arah. So now we're left with the task of discussing a little bit Guf and Atzmos HaMeichin of the sechel and Bibchina Chitzenius, and then how that translates in being a ha-arah. We discussed a while ago why is it that in sechel it's called hashpoas ha-sechel, not limud ha-sechel? Limud is when you have, like we have a sefer in front of us, and the Melamed is teaching, helping the Talmud to go through the words and the oasis and interpret what he's reading. A teacher in yeshiva is not called a mashpia. Teaches Gemara and you could be very deep, he's a teacher. A mashpia, typically we refer to one who's teaching chassidus rather than nigla. Why is that? Because the union of hashpah is, but the mashpia not only knows the subject and the topic, but he actually lived with it. This is where the mashpia gets his sechel. The sechel of the mashpia is not a sechel that he learned. It's a sechel that he lived through. He went to the source of the sechel, and then that source imbued him with the sechel. A very superficial, but nonetheless a meaningful way of relating to it, of giving a mashal. Again, something that we've used in the past. Someone is directing another person in some kind of in a direction, just how to get from place to place. Oh, sorry. He's directing him because he knows how to go there. Tells him, if you walk this direction, you'll encounter this street and that street, and you turn this way and you turn that way. And he gives him all the various key points, how to get to the place. There's the other way. Another way is, as you said many times, one standing up on the Empire State Building, up high, and he sees the entire panorama of all the entire labyrinth of streets, and he sees where the person is standing, and he relates to him from his overview and recognizing his position relative to where he needs to go. And he's directing him from that perspective. There he is not telling him what he knows. There he is actually with him in the labyrinth. But he is not confused in the labyrinth because he sees the whole thing. And as a matter of fact, when he gives him direction, he doesn't have to give him direction by street names. He says, walk here. Okay, now turn this way. He can lead him step by step, because he's involved with him in the element itself.
But in the first way, you say he gives him key steps. He gives him instructions step by step also, no?
Yeah, instruction of what? You'll go this way. You encounter this street name. On this street, you should turn this way. Then you encounter the other street.
So what's the difference?
Yeah, what's the difference?
To remain on this call, press 1.
In the first mashal, the person's not on top of the Empire State Building looking down.
Right. No, he's just telling him what he knows. In the mashal, when he sees from on top the entire labyrinth and he sees the person, he does not have to contemplate the logic of how this person can get to this place. Even if he doesn't know anything, he doesn't know any of these streets. He's there, and he sees the entire reality. He tells him what he knows, not what the official knowledge is, but he personally knows. That's a completely different representation, a completely different relationship. Because his own knowledge of this labyrinth and the solution to the problem is not by knowledge, but by actually intuitive knowledge. It's there. Personal experience. It's a personal representation rather than a learned representation. Hashpoa has sechel, ha-arah, mashpia, no kabul. Why is it that the mashpia, why can't the makabel get it on himself? Because makabel has no access to the source of the sechel. the mashpia has access to the source of the sechel. In fact, what he is telling him is not what he himself is experiencing. He's showing like the chitzonius of his experience. As a matter of fact, even these contours, mentioning these turns and all that, he doesn't think of it in terms of turns. He goes from point A to point B. The turns don't play a role. He does not relate from point A to point B as a result of these turns. He goes straight from point A to point B. Because point A and point B are both in the same reality, in the same world, in the same plaza, so to speak. And this is how he relates to it. As far as he's concerned, he doesn't have to go turn around. He goes straight. He doesn't even realize that he makes turns, because he goes straight to his target.
Where does the ha-arah notion we spoke about comes into place in this motion?
This inyan that he draws from his awareness, the chitzonius, which is called the ha-arah. So let me explain. I'd like you to put on your thinking cap. The one who is giving direction from above, he does not relate the fact that there is these streets and there is these streets' names. He does not translate what he sees to a teaching level. He is in fact leading him the same way as he would go, as he sees. He goes straight from point A to point B. Except this is the ha-arah of that perception. He goes straight to...
The streets is ha-arah. The way he puts it in the streets is ha-arah.
Right. Since he cannot say to him, go straight, he says, make a turn, make a turn. This is a ha-arah, but he is not building his process on the basis of these turns. He's building his process on the basis of his relationship to point B.
Because he needs to present it.
Yeah. So this is called the chitzonius of the other sechel. Even, so we have to understand, the chitzonius is not a different sechel. It is the same sechel, but it's a chitzonius of that sechel. Meaning it is the sechel after the sechel was formed as sechel rather than the sechel as it is in its source. In its source it's not sechel. It's triviality, you said. Point A to point B, I go straight. I don't see any obstruction. As far as I'm concerned, they're in the same place. Let's take this in a more practical and an easier situation. The similar idea, we spoke about it a while ago. If you have to go from here to the water pot, do you contemplate the fact that you'll have to go around the bima and several tables? But they are in the middle.
They're in the way.
They're on the way. In fact, you will have to go around them. But that does not constitute the way the direction how to get there, because you're going straight there. Okay. So when the minute you start talking in terms of how do you get there, you're talking about chitzonius. Because in etzem guf and etzem ha-sechel, there's no how. He's there. Because the whole reality of the sechel is all one reality. Just as in the case of getting to the pot of water, it's in the same room. Somebody asks you, where's the pot? You will not say, you go around the beam and you, it's right over there. But I don't see it. It's right over there. So the mashpia sechel. This is what's called mashpia. Why is mashpia? Because he knows the sechel at a higher level than the sechel. He knows it at its reality level. And he was a mashpia, this reality. But yet mashpia only the chitzonius, because he has to give it over. And to give it over, he has to be chitzonius. This chitzonius is called the ha-arah, or ha-arah of what? Of the real thing. Typically, if you take this a little bit more into detail, if in fact you're directing somebody in this manner, you're constantly reassessing where he is in proximity to where he needs to go. And as you're leading him, you say, oh, perfect, now just go this way. Because all the time you're not directing him in the labyrinth, you're directing him to where he wants to go, where he wants to go. He's always in connection to this target, except he still has to get to it. This is the mashpia. Mashpia is always in connection to the source of the sechel. Because he does not only know the sechel, he actually lived through it, experienced it. It's a different kind of knowledge. This is why it's called mashpia. And therefore mashpia is mashpia only not the etzem ha-sechel, nor the chitzonius of the sechel. He cannot tell them it's there. That doesn't mean anything. But instead of saying it's there, he's leading him, but still maintaining that perception that there is a connection between where he is now and to where he is going. So he's giving him the same sechel, but only the chitzonius of it. If he would translate the direction, talking in our terms, in our motion, if he would translate it in terms of street names, then he would not give him the chitzonius of his sechel. He would just give him a different level completely, practical level. But if he is telling him go right and go left, and you're okay, you're just almost there, this is still part of the mashpia sechel. But it's a chitzonius. It's called the ha-arah. Ha-arah, now we can sense what's a ha-arah. Ha-arah means it's a reflection of the real thing. And the chitzonius is a Huh?
It's going to sound like a very awkward question, but what's the scope, the deep scope, the significant dimension of the mashpia vision? If the mashpia himself has to go from A to B, he's going to have to go around the bima.
He will have to go around the bima, no question about it. But as he's going around the bima, he will never lose sight of the direction of the target.
So same thing for the Mekabel?
No.
The Mekabel doesn't.
Oh, yeah, sure. He doesn't know where he's going. Why are you telling me to? I don't know. You're telling me to go east, to go west. I don't know. Which way do you want me to go?
Okay.
He's walking in the darkness.
And he has to give him ha-arah because he couldn't tell him the whole story at once.
You can tell him. No, it's not the whole story. You can't. That's the real thing cannot be transmitted.
He cannot give him the reality. He can just give him left and right.
That's right. You can't transmit. You can't transmit the sight. You can transmit what I see, not the experience of the sight itself.
Is this the same? Our Kopf kann man nicht aufstellen.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Okay, let's start again from the fourth line. The mashpia gives a sechel to the makabel. This sechel is not drawn from guf atzmus ha-meichen shaloi, the essence of his meichen. We said many times, the other day we emphasized it, that sechel is actually rooted in rotzei. So the chayus, the etzem ha-sechel, is the chayus of the etzem ha-sechel is rot.
What time of is tonight?
We can translate this also in our motion.
I missed that. You can translate what in the motion?
Rotzen, the rotzen element.
Cannot be.
We can, but we have to refine our thinking. But we can translate it also in our rotzen, in our motion. Taking the simplest one, we're going from here to the water pot. The sense that the water pot is in the same place as you are is not a sechelic sense. It's a rotzen sense. It's a sense of the reality. You can't explain this sense. This is how you relate to this room. This is the sechel as it is still rooted in the Rotzen. Rotzen is what presents you with this reality. Then, from this sechel as it is rooted in Rotzen, comes this is where the guf and that's our sechel. From this come the chitzonius. The chitzonius is where you identify that within this Rotzen there are actually many places. There's this place and that place, and there are many spaces between these two places. This is the chitzonius of that. The chitzonius of what? Of the essence. But it's chitzonius. So the hashpah that comes from the Rav to the mashpia to Makabel is from the chitzonius of that reality, rather than the essence. Because if he could not translate, if he could not relate to the fact that yes, indeed, they're in the same room, but you still have to get there, he couldn't direct him. Because he's there already. As far as he's concerned, it's in this room. But I am, it's in this room.
So when the Mushal is constantly said that the mashpia knows from point A to point B. So this saying...
No. That's when it translates in sechel. But the Etzem sechel is not...
There's no point A and point
no
B.
point A and point B.
The
It's
point
only
A and
one
point
place.
B is in sechel.
That's right.
But not the chitzonius of sechel.
Ultimately, it comes into...
At that stage.
He also has chitzonius, and the chitzonius is what he can mashpia to the Kabul. He doesn't think in those terms at all. As far as he's concerned, it's in this room. I think we can relate to this. Want to speak about everybody, I can relate to this very simple illustration. So, as I said, I want to start again from the fourth line. So it is not miguf v'atzmos ha'meichen shalei. Because what is guf v'atzmos ha'meichen shalei? Guf v'atzmos ha'meichen is how it is rooted in the reality itself, in the rotzen. That he cannot give any aspect. What then? From the chitzonius aspect of this guf etzem hasech. Yes, it's only the same room, but there is a way of looking at it from a practical view. Shuhu gamken ha-arah. The chitzonius is also a ha-arah. The chitzonius itself, even though this is the chitzonius of that sechel, it is not yet sechel of the makabel. The chitzonius is also of that same sechel. It's also a ha-arah. And here is digging in. The chol ha-arah shebo b'bchinas ila v'yolo. A ha-arah that comes down in the ila v'yolo manner. Behechrech. It is imperative. It is a must. Compelling. Shegam ho'yilo hi b'chinas ha-arah levad. It is compelling to say that the ilo itself, the cause itself, the source, is also only ha-arah. Because if it can come down in an Ilav or Olav manner, so then the source itself is also only a ha-arah. So you guys have to tell me if
So far, so good.
okay, please.
I am confused.
Uh-huh. Sticking with?
Still a little confused.
Huh?
I'm still a little confused.
Confused. Confused, that's all.
A little. It makes sense based on the mashal you gave about the room.
Is it trying to say that the rotzen to the sechel is nothing?
It's what?
It's like the etzem. That's not elevol, but the sechel to the chitzonis sechel, that's elevol.
Right. No. Ilav comes from the chitzonis sechel. The chitzonis sechel is ha-arah of the sechel.
So chitzonius.
What is the ha-arah in our mashal? Like we said, in the mashal of the room. Initially in the rotzen, it's all in one place. A ha-arah of that is that in this one place there's a place to walk.
Point A, point B.
There's point A, point B. But this is the ha-arah of it. You're not relating to it as two different places. It's in the same place. If you have to get out and get some water, you don't feel like, I'm going someplace. You're not going any place. You're staying put. This is called the chitzonius ha-sechel.
And then you give it to the makabel.
One sechel. After you go, you have to carry all your package with you. Again, I always question whether we should continue with this. You see how deep this is. As far as I'm concerned, I'm in my element, and that's. But I have to have everybody. Just want to explain what is the significance of this. The significance of this whole discussion right now is to understand how the sechel relates to the reality itself.
How did you turn it off?
On the side.
What time are they davening? At 9 o'clock?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. We have to. Okay. So I owe you
Let's
this.
finish this.
Daber? Daber? Yeah. Listen. Oh, shh. Don't say that. Shh. Just listen. Listen, you're in the middle of a class. Just be quiet. Excuse me, talk to me.
the important, the principle that is in this is that the sechel ultimately is talking about something that's real to the nefesh, not something that I know, but something that I am actually within. This is why we sechel, you say that sechel is rooted in emunah. Emunah is not the knowledge. So this whole discussion brings this clearly home. And this is completely, it's higher than sechel in essence. It's the reality itself. Knowing the various things, the chitzenius. From this can come ha-arah. But then there's the truth and reality itself. That is the sechel itself. This is the sechel as it is part of the roots. Okay.
The bear.